Hello and welcome to the Sultry Diaries today. As you can see, I'm not in my shed. I'm actually up in the Cairngorm Mountain range, Mountain range up in Scotland. We've been on a bit of an adventure for the last few weeks, travelling up around Scotland, going through the Applecross Pass. Hello, Willow. Hello, hi. And we've landed here in Braemar, in the Cairngorms National Park, and just found ourselves in a little bit of heaven. I'm sure you can hear all of the birds. There's red squirrels here in the garden running around. There's rabbits. There's all kinds of finches. We've landed in heaven here. This week's it's not a shed talk this week. This week's garden talks is all going to be regarding our patriarchal structures, our patriarchy, not our structures, but our patriarchy. The role of the man, the role of men. We've done a lot of talking over the motherlines, over the seasons that we live through, over the imbalance of this in our family lives. Hello, bee. There's a huge bee just going past. So that I'm in such an open space here, it's just incredible. But one thing that's really, I guess, kind of struck me as we've been on our travels as a family is how much of that fatherline history and that fatherline role we've actually been connecting to on this journey. We've gone to a few places in Scotland now where my partner, my children's father, where his family's history has such relevance and importance back in those war times. Back in 1939 in the war. His grandfather, who was on HMS Mohawk in the Firth of Forth, who survived that bombing. We went there to do the Three Bridges cruise, which was quite a poignant moment in the trip, being in the Firth of Forth and being in the oceans where his grandfather was when they experienced that bombing. Now, Andy's grandfather was one of three sons, and we, of course, have three sons. So this was it just had a lot of feels about it. There was quite a lot of relevance for us being there as parents of three sons. Oh, that sun is blinding. Oh my goodness me, and gorgeous. I can tell you, when this sun comes out here, it's gorgeous. It's so warm, but the second a cloud comes over and the wind comes past, it's so bitter and so freezing. An interesting little fact about where we're staying actually is in Braemar, they have recorded the lowest temperatures in the UK on three occasions, one in 18 something and one in 1982. They recorded minus 27 degrees here. So we're hoping we don't experience that weather, those temperatures while we're here. I'll just see if I can move this a little bit, that sunshine, because it's blinding me looking that way. Oh, there we go. So it's been quite a poignant trip in terms of exploring that father line. And of course, many of us come from families where our forefathers were in the wars and lost their lives in the wars or survived the wars and then became quite deeply impacted for the rest of their lives following these experiences that they went through, with no healing offered, with no understanding of how war traumatizes the man or the women who were involved. On our journey up through Scotland, we then continued up through to the very north of Scotland, which was fascinating because we travelled up to the land of the Pictish, the painted tribes, who have, theory has it, that they actually have a very strong connection with their elite and the people who sat in seats of power, actually followed down through the motherlines. So they are known for following that motherline tradition. We went to a beautiful village in the Highlands called Killin, where I actually picked up this necklace, 5 rings, 5 different metals, crafted by a local lady who does a lot of work. A lot of her work is designed around the Pictish, and they were the painted ladies. They had the tattoos, their tribal images, and there's lots of they were steel workers and metal workers. So it's quite lovely to have picked this up with 5 rings depicting the 5 of us in the family, but to have that deep connection to that Pictish connection of that motherline. And that wasn't to say that they only had women who sat in seats of power, they also had men, but it traditionally followed that motherline. Which I guess in a way you could say that we very much have today in the UK. We have a king who is born from a mother who was a queen. So in some ways we're following our motherline in our royal families too. And given everything that's going on in the world globally, I think that it was a very apt moment for our king. Sorry, where I was sitting on my stand here. I think it was a very apt moment for our king to step out from underneath the umbrella of his mother and fully show himself as a king in his speech that he gave in Congress in the States. A speech that was very much about the roots and the history and how long-standing they sit in that waiting seat before they take on that role. We've got some twigs on you, Willow. So in our journey, we've gone through the Firth of Forth, where we saw the grounds where Andy's grandfather survived the bombing in the war. We've travelled through the land of the Pictish in the northeast, and then we travelled even further up to the Orkneys, where his grandfather's brother, our 3 sons' great uncle, lost his life at the tender age of 20 on HMS Oak. Not yet in a place where he'd experienced or fully stepped into his adult life, or even been able to become a father himself. But the wounds and the scars of his loss remained in the family, remained and impacting the brothers, or the brother who was left behind. So I think there's a time in the world of deep reflection on patriarchy, on our father lines, because we seem to be living in times of chaos in our lives, of dysfunction between the balance in homes, between the man and the woman. And I think that we have to look back on these years of war and see how these deeply impacted generations and what it was that was passed down through fathers to their sons of what being a father meant to them. Because when you're so wounded from the wars, when silence follows, when survival habits kick in, when coping strategies of trauma and PTSD sink in deep into families, we have to look at the behaviour patterns and the habits that get passed down through a family as normal, and how those relationships within those homes between men and women and the whole togetherness of a family was affected and impacted. And over the last several weeks, we have very much looked at the role of the mother and how, when they step into motherhood, or the role of the woman, because of course we don't all step into motherhood, but the role of the woman is very much about protecting that inner circle of the home. So what is the role of the father line? If the mother line is about the heart and the bloodline and the connection and the healthy development of the children in the home, what is the role of the father line? And I think that this is very much where, as a society, we have become so detached between the role of the mother line and the father line for many reasons. One of those being that our men have become so detached from the family home. If the role of the mother line is to protect the inner sanctuary of the home, Mother Earth, protecting the roots, the father line is about protecting the outside circle of that, so that the women inside can do the work to keep the balance and the health and the development of those inside that circle. You don't need to look far in nature to see this in action. Many mammal families, the fathers, the males, they will be the ones who protect the outside circle of that family from any intruders who come in. Now, quite often, yes, they will be involved within the raising of the young, but the majority of that role sits in the mother line and the women or the females in that family unit. But there's still a connection of that outside circle of the male protection and that inside circle of the sanctuary of the home. And this is a place where, for me, you can see how as humans we have brought this concept to life in many, many ways, because we have Mother Earth, which is the feminine, the seasons and the essence of the home. And then we have also given that title of God to that outside circle, whatever that is. I'm not a religious person myself, but if you look at these as concepts of Mother Earth being the feminine and God being that masculine, we have those two roles still of Mother Earth and the roots, and God is seen as the protector of the outside. But there's a deep connection between the two. The male line, the father line, has to be connected to what it is that he is protecting. He has to feel the essence from the inside to know what it is that he's keeping safe. His family line too. But if we cross this over to humans, our fathers, our men, have become so removed from the family home that they have no seeing, no sense, and no real connection of what it is that the mother line is trying to do within the home, because their vision has been turned so far away from family that their role has become money. Protection in our cultures now is money. And this is deeply wounding our men, because they are trying to do this in societies where this is becoming impossible. You look at the rates of male suicide, the struggles, the burdens that they are carrying, trying to keep a family home safe in times of rising costs across the board, rent prices that are insane, property prices that are beyond most people's minimum wage. We can see why the males and the masculine in our life are struggling so much with their role, because if they don't have that protection, if they don't feel that they are fulfilling their role, which man has made about finances, instead of protecting the circle of the family home, it leaves them in chaos. It leaves them in fight or flight. And you can see this, that even just on a global scale, how much men are looking outwards now. They are looking outwards in a way where everything is becoming about power and control and money, whilst, quite frankly, belittling the role of the mothers in the home and seeing it as not as relevant as what they do, because we don't bring in money which brings protection to our family homes. This is because we work in different roles. We have very different roles as mothers and fathers or parents in our homes. And when one role or one purpose is seen as more important than the other, we lose balance, we lose sight, and we lose the safety of our family homes. And I think that earlier I mentioned our King and the speech that he gave. I think just in this alone, you can see someone who was raised with a mother, who had a deep connection with his mother and an emotional connection with her. He was raised in a way to have power within. And there's a very stark difference between a man who uses power over and control to run a home than a man who uses power within. And I think just in terms of looking at some of our leaders in this world, you can see the ones who use power over and control and the impact that that has on their nations and on their people. And you can see a man who runs from power within. They don't need to use dominance to stake their claims. It just is. And I think as we step into quite challenging times in the globe, we can't step out there and bring change to the men who use power, control, anger, and force. All we can do is look inwards to our homes and raise sons who have an emotional connection to the family home, who have emotional connection to their motherlines, bringing that grounded rootedness that is the purpose of Mother Earth, so that when they step out into the world to start their role as the protector of the outer circle of the family home, they will do this with the roots of the mother growing through them, so that they have that connection, so that they're not feeling lost in the world. We have so much to do to bring change to our generational family lines. But I know so many women who are raising sons, and I believe that this is the reason that we are now in such times of women who grew up in dysfunction or chaos, now raising sons, because this is the time when, as women, we get to step in and bring back the essence of Mother Earth so that we can bring balance to the motherline and the fatherline for the next generations to come. My goodness me, that sun is absolutely gorgeous today. I didn't think that when I came to Scotland for our family holiday that I would be leaving Devon to come up to Scotland to get a suntan. We have brought so many winter layers with us on our holiday and so many thick layers with us to endure the Scottish springtime. And yet we seem to have arrived in summer. Well, I shall probably be continuing the next couple of weeks' videos from up here in, hopefully, fingers crossed, sunny Scotland. Although the place we're staying at the moment, they have threatened some snow over the next few days, which would be just an absolute delight, because being from Devon, we don't really get much snow, and when we do, it certainly doesn't settle in Plymouth. So the fact that they have threatened a little bit of snow in the place that we're staying would just be absolutely perfect. Our three boys would love to see some snow on their travels, and what better a garden to have it in than this. Well, thank you for joining me for today's video. I know that this is a subject that many women I speak with chat over and discuss, because there's so much talk in the world at the moment about the challenges of relationship, of balance in our homes, of women choosing not to have relationships or choosing to raise their children alone. And whilst change is needed, we also need to have a plan, a solution, something that we know that we can do, or something we know we are doing that will bring change to some of the heaviness that we're all feeling in the world. And I know some incredible women who are raising sons who are in their teenage 20s, and they are just incredible men. So the change is happening, the change is starting. Because when we raise men, boys, who can step into those worlds with emotional regulation, with grounding, with roots, with the ability to have the conversations that women need to have within their homes about what it is that we're doing and the struggles that we have in our lives, being mothers in this modern world. When women have no sisterhood around them and our only place to turn to is the men in our life, we need to have men who can connect with this and help us to bring the deep levels of repair that's needed so that the generations to come can have balance in their homes again. Thank you for joining me today. Take care. I will see you from wherever we are next week. Thank you.